and welcome everybody to our Teach Meet today, all about SEND in the early years. It's great to see so many of you here with us, and we're going to have, I'll be presenting quite a few of the slides, but we've also got our team leaders from the inclusion team, Emma and Vanessa, that's joined us as well. So let's do a few more introductions. So I'm Susie Baker. I am the product owner for inclusion. And just to give you a little bit of background of my experience, I've been teaching for 10 years. 5 years of those have been in mainstream settings, and another 5 years have been in specialist settings. And predominantly my teaching's been across the early years, but I have taught across the key stages as well. And I'll pass to Vanessa to do a quick introduction now.
Hello, I'm one of the team leaders in inclusion. I've been with Twinkl about 7 years, and before that was teaching in mainstream schools for 17 years. But yeah, I will pass to Emma.
Thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, my name is Emma and I'm the other team lead for the inclusion team. I've been with Twinkl for 3 years now, and I actually started off on the secondary side of the business because that's where my experience is from. So I taught in secondary schools for about 9 years before I started here. Back to you, Susie, please.
Great, thank you very much. And when I was teaching and using Twinkl in my everyday practice, I wasn't aware of how vast the experience for the professionals that are here kind of working on the content behind the scenes. And I just really wanted to highlight that to you. So in our fantastic inclusion team, we have a BSL tutor, we have SEND teachers, early years teachers, SENCos, speech language therapist, occupational therapist, we've got a dyslexia specialist and SEND educational advisors, to name a few. And our segment manager, Hannah, has put lots of information around this if you want to learn more about the team making resources in her handy blog, which the link is, just to give you a bit of context with the slides, you'll get the slides sent out. So any of the links that you find really interesting, you want to look at further, you can open up when it's emailed out to you. So what we're going to cover, so we're going to have a look at the legal requirements and the SEND in the early years overview. We're going to have a look at the qualification. We're going to have a look at the early years SEND audit, graduated approach, transitions, updates, and then some useful resources as well. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have time for some questions. What I'm going to be moving on to now is looking at the legal aspects of SEND. So as you're very well aware, and thank you so much for your responses, I can see the popping and that's really useful to know. Our legal responsibilities, it's so important that you're aware of these, and it's as an early years setting to provide an inclusive environment for all children. And there's three main legislation that's important to ensure that the EYFS statutory guidance and SEN Code of Practice and Equality Act are covered. So there's two frameworks for the EYFS. We've got the childminders framework, and then we've got the EYFS framework for groups and school-based providers. And providers are responsible for ensuring that they follow the current version of their framework for their provider type. So the EYFS framework mentions around it requires non-maintained providers to have arrangements in place for meeting children's special educational needs, and they should have clear arrangements in place for identifying children's additional needs to promote equal opportunities. And then we move on to SEND Code of Practice. So this builds on the Children and Family Act of 2014. And a little quote that they're looking at here in paragraph 1.31 is, it's demanding that there's early detection of SEND and a very quick response. Parents and carers are recognised, and we've got the gradual response to SEND as well. And then the cycle of assess, plan, do, review is used with specialist involvement as necessary. And then we've got the Equality Act of 2010. So we've got settings must make appropriate adjustments to ensure that students with disabilities do not drastically underperform in comparison to their peers, including making physical alterations, providing additional assistance and services, and altering by any rule, practice or standard. This duty is preemptive. Settings must forward plan and think about what children with SEND might need and what adjustments could be made to prevent any disadvantages. Early childhood settings must make certain there is quality of opportunity provided. And this illustration really highlights this well, the equality and equity. So inclusion is not about giving every child the same, it's about giving every child what they need. And the CPD team have made a really useful resource around this, and it's an A to Z terminology, if you want to look into that some more. And then we've got a handy guide, an overview document for you with all this information in, so you get the real concise points of what needs to be covered, and that's in our early years SEND and the legal obligations guide. And I'll pass now to Emma. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. So what I'm going to talk through now is some information about SEND in the early years. So the SEND Code of Practice 0 to 25 years sets out 4 main areas of special educational needs and disabilities. And these are communication and interaction needs, cognition and learning difficulties, social, emotional and mental health difficulties, and sensory and physical needs. And as some of you may know, some children and young people may have SEND in more than one of these areas. Examples of communication and interaction needs may be communication needs, understanding of language, or understanding of social communication skills such as autism. Nationally, we have seen an increase in this need. Examples of cognition and learning difficulties can be profound and multiple learning disabilities, global development delay, or specific learning difficulties such as dyslexia or dyspraxia. Examples of social, emotional, and mental health difficulties can be attachment and trauma needs, anxiety, etc., which we are seeing an increase in early years following COVID. More information can be found on the resource on the right. And now this is early years SENDCo qualification. Is there anyone here currently working towards or considering studying for the early years SENDCo qualification? Just pop any responses in the chat, please. Thank you. So we can see there's a couple of people considering it, and then there is some people who have said that they are currently undertaking it or working towards it. Thanks, everyone. In August 2022, the government awarded the Best Practice Network with funding to run the early years SENDCo qualification. Many local authorities and organisations run the qualification independently as well. However, you can gain your qualification. The criteria of success has been determined by the DFE. We have created a collection of resources that can help to support your studies. And there's a link there. Susie, did you say that this is going to get sent out to people so they can click on these links themselves?
Yes, the slides will. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And now we'll have a look at inclusive practice in the early years. So inclusion is valuing every child's difference. It is acknowledging that they each learn at their own pace, have different interests, and providing them with what they individually need to achieve their full potential. So settings must, first of all, be respectful and welcoming to all children and their families. Recognise and celebrate every child's uniqueness. Include and support every child. Think creatively to ensure that every child is able to participate in every activity that they wish to, if they wish to. And ensure that resources reflect the background of every child. As you can see, the bottom of the slide has another link which you can have a look at once the slides come out to you. Susie, it's back to you for this one.
Great, thank you. So we're going to be moving on to the graduated approach. So this is the process all early years professionals need to follow when they're concerned about child focus. And it's the assess, plan, do review. And we've created an overview guidance there that you can access. So the assess is all about early identification, and early identification in SEND needs allows gaps in learning which peers do not make sure they don't get bigger and kind of narrow that gap. So the CEO of NASDN expressed that delays in early identification would increase costs in the future. Therefore, it's really important to identify and discuss concerns with parents and carers as soon as possible and record these discussions. And we've created a resource that's highlighted on the right for you that will really help you to do this. It's important that the right support is in place as early as possible to ensure that the child is in the best possible position when they reach statutory school age. And this is the plan bit about working with parents. So the plan part of the graduated approach involves initially meeting with the parents and carers to discuss the child's strengths and differences. And once the child has started on the graduated approach, the plan should be reviewed half-termly with parents and carers. And to working with child's parents and carers and other professionals to plan targets and strategies to support the child, and these can be recorded on an early years support plan. These blue highlighted phrases here, they're just the links to the resources that we've created to help you provide this level of support. So for more information on setting targets, you could use what is a SMART target resource. And you should also work with the adults close to the child to write a one-page profile. And now we move on to creating personalised learning plans. So this is the do part of the graduating approach. So the personalised learning plans, otherwise known as PLP, should include teaching strategies and resources to be used by the setting and external agencies, if relevant, to support the child. So PLP will also include any assessment information about your child that the school holds. The PLP should also say when it will next be reviewed, what criteria will be used to evaluate wherever the child has not met their targets. Targets on a PLP should be detailed, specific, time-related, not vague or general. Targets should be realistic and provide your child with the opportunity for success and achievement. And then the review and the assessment. So a defined method for SEND assessment should be in place for early childhood providers and school settings. The overall strategy used by the setting to track each child's growth and development should include this graduated approach. Children grow and develop at different rates and in different ways. Not all children will follow statements in the order, but they will be used to track development over time. And we've made a early years SEND tracking assessment here, which is proving really popular. So I just wanted to highlight that. That might inform your practice moving forward if you're looking for an assessment to use. And then we've got demonstrating progress. The non-statutory guidance offered in development matters in the EYFS states, children develop at their own rates in their own ways. The development statements and their order should not be taken as necessary steps for the individual children. They should not be used as checklists. The age and stage bands overlap because these are not fixed age boundaries, but a suggested typical range of development. And then we've got an area of the celebratory approach, and this is highlighted by the Penguin principles to assessment, and it says that assessment to be done in collaboration rather than to the family, and reflects their views and comments, that the assessment is accessible and could be understood by the family, that the assessment celebrates the achievements rather than identifies the underachievements, and that the language and the style of the presentation stays true to its principle. That also that the assessment process offers a powerful means of identifying how the child can be best supported in their development and learning. This may be done through consideration of next steps, possible lines of direction for an individual child, and used by other including external agencies and schools to which children may transfer. And then we're moving on to the audit and staff training. So this is a really useful tool to use. And we currently have a practitioner and environmental audit. So the practitioner audit allows SENCos to look at their own and their practitioners' skills and knowledge of SEND and recognise their strengths and next steps. These next steps will then be used to create an action plan for further developments of SEND skills and knowledge in their setting. The environment audit allows settings to identify their strengths and next steps needed to create an inclusive early years SEND environment. And then once those next steps are identified, an action plan can be created to help to develop the environment further. So this is really handy as a starting point of, okay, what does everybody need to progress in the direction we want to with our inclusive environment? And we've also got a whole staff quiz for identifying training needs. So by figuring out the training needs of your staff can be really tricky. We appreciate that. And especially if there's gaps in the training as well, and the timing of when different practitioners started. So being aware of these gaps and filling them with relevant knowledge, you'll be able to help meet the needs of all children. And that's why with the help of the fantastic inclusion teachers at Twinkl, we've been able to create our early years SEND SENCo whole staff training quiz to help identify these needs. And I am going to pass now to Vanessa. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is on strategies to support cognition and learning. So we have our early years SENCo strategies and information pack. And this pack contains a wide variety of resources and adult guidance that list a range of strategies to support early years children. The information looks specifically at strategies for children who need support with speech and language, sensory needs, English as an additional language, turn taking, well-being, and transitions. And SEND early years play scripts. Some learners with SEND find unstructured continuous provision time really challenging, and play scripts provide ideas on play using different materials in continuous provision. We've got our SEND early years play scripts pack, and workstation activities are also a great way of developing independent work skills and structure. And we have quite a lot of workstation activities available as well. Transition. Early years children have a lot of transitions to cope with. Transitions from room to room within a setting, to a new setting, or transitions to school. Songs, countdowns, visual timetables, and photos of the transition location are great ways of supporting this process. And I'm sure a lot of you have got lots of other brilliant ideas as to how to make that easier as well. An enhanced transition is planned several months ahead of time and is personalised to the child. This ensures that the transition happens at a suitable pace to the individual and is more of a process than a single act. and we've got some SEND transition songs on the website as well. Early years EHCP. For children under the age of statutory school age, their EHCP should be reviewed every 3 to 6 months, and these resources are available to support you. We've got an EYFS All About Me book for person-centred review, Early Years EHCP review pack, and how to hold an early years multi-agency review meeting. I'll pass back to Emma.
Thank you, Vanessa. So what I'm going to talk through now is how to find some of our resources that you might find useful. So this is how to find the inclusion section of the website. So you will find it by typing inclusion in the top search bar where you can just see on the image right at the top, the send small steps is highlighted in grey. You can also click the link when this PowerPoint is sent out, and that should take you to it as well. And then you can click the link to learn more about us, and that's a Twinkl Inclusion Product Guide. How to find our early years resources. So you type EYFS SEND in the search bar at the top of the page, or type inclusion into the search bar, which brings you to our homepage. Click on send, and then click on teaching and support strategies. And then it'll bring up this list, which you can see on the right. It says category list, select send support for early years. And then there's a top tip at the bottom. When using the main search bar, scroll further down the page to view our newest content when searching. So this is the Early Years SENDCo Qualification and Extra CPD. We do have a whole collection of resources to support this and other areas of the SENDCo Early Years Qualification. You can see the blue link there. You can click on that and find a load of useful resources there. And again, how to find. Once you're on the inclusion homepage, click on send and then click on adult support, and that's where you'll find those resources. Back to you, Susie.
Great, thank you, Emma. So here's some useful updates. So we've been doing a piece of work looking at whole body active listening, and this is an audit that we completed of resources already on site, but we wanted to make sure they're represented and listening more inclusively. And we've created an OT, what does whole body active listening look like in the early years resource, which highlights this really well. So listening, as you well know, looks differently for everybody. Your brain is sending a message to your body to do something, to stay regulated so you can listen. And just take a moment to think of what you do when you're listening. You may draw your fingers on the desk, you may twirl your hair, you may tap your foot, you may click your pen, you may look around the room. I know I do all of those at some point when I'm listening really intently to something. And I've included a link to embracing fidget toys in the classroom as well. It's a blog that our segment manager Hannah wrote, and a top tip is to consider using fidget toys and adapting seating and sitting positions and areas in your continuous provision as well when you're wanting that more focused listening time. And then we've got an update around situational selective mutism. So just a quick question before I go into that. Does anybody work currently with any learners with situational or selective mutism? If you do a hand raise for me. Great, thank you for sharing. So I wanted to let you know of a recent development in the language around this, traditionally known as, you're aware of, selective mutism. Why you'll notice on site that our resources have changed in their wording to reflect this, And why the change? This has been promoted by the SALT community to acknowledge that the situation greatly impacts the learner's confidence when they're verbally communicating. And we've got a new category to kind of highlight this. And then a top tip is to identify your learner's communication method and ensure it's implemented throughout your setting. And here we are with the early years SEND essentials. So this is looking at the total communication environment and the power of visuals. So the communication friendly environment is a space that supports really good communication skills. And a communication friendly environment will remove barriers to communication for all children and students, support the development of children's communication needs, and creating a communication friendly environment is really good practice. So 3 areas to consider when developing this environment is the general classroom environment, the language interactions, and the language opportunities for your learners. And we've got creating a total communication environment adult guidance sheet. And then I've also included there about an objects of reference advice sheet too. And a top tip, something I was always using in my practice, which my learners found super useful, was using the recordable speakers. A great way of modelling language and encouraging turn-taking skills as well for emerging speech language development. And embedding those in throughout your sessions was really effective. And then in relation to this, I just want to mention about the levels of symbolic understanding. So which is the correct type of communication symbol for my students? So many of you will be using different symbols for maybe photos, or depending on where they're at in their development. But the key is to always start with objects of reference first and then move on to photos. And in order to support a student's communication through the use of symbols, it's really important to determine which level of symbolic development the student's at. So this adult guidance sheet outlines the different levels of symbolic development and suggested interventions and resources for that appropriate level. Just a bit of an example from my experience, I worked with a learner who initially he needed the photos, but once he'd got secure in the photos for his visual timetable, we were then able to move on to the black and white illustrations. And then once they were secure in that, we then used the symbols with colour and then moved on to the words. So there's lots of resources that can support you in kind of guiding that. But if you're finding that you're using a visual timetable or now an Xboard, you're not quite getting a consistent response, it could just be because of the level of symbolic understanding at that time. And moving on now to sensory needs. So as you're well aware, meeting the learner's sensory needs is so key for aiding their behaviour regulation and their readiness to learn. So a great way of meeting the whole body sensory input and lifting mood. And we've got an OT sensory movement break choose board, and we've got more about how to implement a sensory diet, and these are all written by our occupational therapist and created by our fantastic inclusion team. And another top tip, giving your learners more control over choices aids their engagement and sense of ownership in an activity. And over to Emma. She'll talk a little bit more about what OT is.
Thanks, Susie. So what is OT? Occupational therapy provides practical support to empower children and their families in overcoming the barriers preventing the child engaging in activities that are important to them. Our experienced occupational therapy specialist has developed these resources to support children in engaging with practical and purposeful activities that allow them to improve their own independence. Our OT collection covers fine motor and gross motor skills, areas of regulation, sensory needs, self-help skills, and adult support. Says, top tip, anyone can access our OT resources, no specialist knowledge or experience is required. You can just see an example there at the top of some hand strengthening exercise circuits that our lovely OT created. Self-regulation. So self-regulation supports learners to manage their emotions in a healthy way and teach them vital skills to look after their well-being. Co-regulation is seeking support from another person when you're not feeling right, somebody that can empathise with you and help you feel better. We're not born with this skill and need to learn how to do it. We can help children build strong co-regulation skills. So there's a couple of resources linked at the bottom, which is what is co-regulation, information for practitioners, early years SEND sensory resources, behaviour regulation pack, and the OT early years guidance sheet dysregulation Twinkl pack. You can see in the images on the right hand side of the page as well, we recently did a collab with Paw Patrol for an areas of self-regulation resource. And then you can see the resource underneath, which is an early years guidance sheet. And top tip, regulation changes daily, always the bigger picture, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, basic needs met, enough sleep. I can't actually see what that says there because I've got a big text box over it. Susie, can you see what it says?
Yeah, I can see from this. So it's just considering the bigger picture here and looking at basic needs. Have they been met in relation to Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Has the child had enough sleep? Have they had time for breakfast? And just to adjust the expectations accordingly. And that's really key to the collaboration you have with parents and that handover you have with them in the morning.
Thank you, Susie. I can't work out how to get rid of that text box. That's really annoying. Behaviour. So dysregulation versus tantrum information sheet. Being able to tell the difference between a dysregulation episode and a tantrum enables you to provide the best support possible to the child. Redirection is a positive behaviour management strategy that works by shifting a child's attention from one thing to another. It can be helpful. It can be a helpful tool to refocus them away from a situation that evokes negative feelings such as anxiety, fear, or anger. And again, we've got some useful links at the bottom of that page. So we've got a resource called Sometimes I Feel Angry. Another one, which is Behaviour Regulation, I Can't Always Get My Own Way. And a CPD resource, which is Using Redirection in Behaviour Management. You can see a couple of examples on the right-hand side as well. So the top tip is often behaviour is a form of communication. What is your child expressing to you? What happened before the behaviour occurred? Vanessa, back to you, please.
Thank you. So we're going to look at new collections and useful resources. So we've got the British Sign Language resources. We've got an EYFS visual timetable and an EYFS continuous provision display pack, all with beautiful illustrations on them to demonstrate what the signs are that go with each of the words. We've got BSL animal flashcards and spring flashcards. And we have baby sign language, family signs poster pack, and baby sign language meal times poster pack. It's, never too early to start using signs. And some of our EYFS SEND resources, we've got the pupil passport, so that a learner's needs and preferences and dislikes can be written down, and that can go with them wherever they are in the school, so that everybody knows how they learn best. And we've got SEND CPD PowerPoint there, which is really useful for early years practitioners. To Emma.
Thank you. And this is one of our most recent projects, which is the SEND Small Steps. And it was created with EYFS and reception age in mind. SEND Small Steps resources have been created for learners who need clear structure and expectation of their work tasks. They've been designed in neutral, natural tones to reduce visual stress. These activities are great for adult-led focus work or can be used for a workstation activity. And the collection also includes repetition errorless activities to build confidence, to introduce a new concept like non-standard units of measure. So there's some links at the bottom of the page, some of our most popular of the small steps resources. So there's a repetition counting 5 to 10, and then there is an SEN primary school curriculum support. And then one of our newest resources is the SEND small steps, Jack and the Beanstalk count and match to 10. We've got a top tip, which is using visuals helps reduce anxiety and uncertainty around focus tasks. We also have a team working at creating Twinkl symbols, and this is a growing product for us at the moment. Affordable, accessible and flexible communication resources and digital tools with everything you need to support SEND children as they learn to communicate. So you can download our free symbols taster pack at the top of the page. And the symbols resources offer the following things: access on the go, easy access to communication tools wherever you are, wherever you need; consistency, a range of resources and digital tools that provide a consistent support to communication; supportive, symbolized resources linked to the curriculum and everyday life situations; affordable, an affordable solution to provide access and support for all; and Twinkl quality, crafted with care by experienced educators and specialists. So on the left-hand side, you can see a range of things that are kind of under the symbols umbrella. So we have our Twinkl symbols resources that are on site, and this is an extensive range of ready-made and ready-to-print symbolized resources linked to the curriculum and everyday situations. Needing access on the go, it links to the bullet points that I've just read. But this is our Twinkl symbols for AAC app, and this is like one of the newest products for the team. So it's an easy to use AAC app that facilitates communication and access on the go. And then we also have our Twinkl symbols web tool. This is a web-based tool where you can create your own bespoke symbolized resources quickly and easily. So these are some of our most popular resources for the symbols section of the site. So we have a now and next activity for home. We've got sensory circuit cards, a snack time AAC mat, daily schedule for school, requesting the toilet visual, lanyard visuals for adults, pets communication colouring, classroom areas, display posters. And Susie, you're going to have to help me out with the name of that last resource again, please.
Sure, that's the emotions matching activity.
Thank you. You will be able to access all of those once this presentation comes out, and then you can click the links and have a little look at what's there. Susie, it's back to you.
Great, thank you. So here is a hand-picked selection of some of our 5-star resources that I thought you'd find useful. So we've got the OT vestibular sensory diet ideas, and this was a new resource uploaded last week, and it involves like the balance and coordination side to focus on. Then we've got 5-minute morning and attention and listening activities, very popular. Our sensory circuit flashcards, our OT gross motor skills, animal moves. We've got our SEND teaching social skills activities. We've got the Ofsted questions for an early years SENDCo. Very key, very useful resource there for when Ofsted do have a visit to get prepped for that. And then we've got our Paw Patrol now and next board. So if you do use a now and next board in your setting with one of your learners, it's really useful to get consistency at home as well. So that could, using the learner's interests, you can theme the board around what they need. And top tip, if there's a specific resource you need, you can request it as far as our cares team, and we'll do our very best to help you with that. And this is a link from our segment manager, Hannah, and she's put all the socials all in one place. So you can follow Twinkl SEND on TikTok, review the podcast. join the Educators Facebook group communities and follow us on Instagram. There's lots of opportunities there to get involved. So I've added that link there for you as well. And then just a general reminder of self-care is healthcare, and whilst you're really busy in your roles, it's so important to remember to take really good care of yourselves, and we've made a resource for that too. It's our OT top tips for practitioners, how to look after your mental health.